Hello and welcome to my very first video on booktube. I'm Charlotte, I live in Bali, so excuse the background noise that may be appearing at any moment, from roosters to traffic to small children. This is just what I'm working with. I felt, having been a viewer of booktube for about 3 years now, I always thought, okay, I'm going to join booktube. I never have. It's not the right moment, or I'm not sure what I'll say. And so today, having seen everybody's amazing 2022 book kind of yearly wrap-ups, I just thought, you know, why not now? With the rooster that is right on cue, why not start now? So I'm starting with my top 10 reads of 2022. I have my laptop down here, so if I keep looking down, that's why. But without further ado, let's go. So my best read of 2022, so starting with the best and then going down to number 10, because I just really want to talk about it, is Against the Loveless World by Susan Abulhawa. And this is the second book I've read by her. I read Mornings in Jenin last year and loved it, but this one just was outstanding. It's a love story, it's political, it's a coming of age, it's following a young girl called Na, as she essentially has her whole the whole course of her life changed. I don't want to tell you too much about the actual plot summary because you can go and look that up for yourself on the blurb, but in terms of what I put in my review, I said here that there are no words. I love Na, who's the central character, and this story will stay with me alongside the other few elite novels I have read. Great structure, great plotting, the technical side of writing as well as a beating heart, both brilliantly executed, because when Susan was plotting this novel, she flips between a dual timeline. So she has Na in essentially an isolated cell, presumably having been captured because, spoiler alert, she does something that the state she lives in deemed as not right. So and then it flip-flops between that and then this, when we meet Na when she's on the cusp of adulthood, so, you know, quite young, and then we see this progression and what happens through various marriages and things like that, through horrible situations, like near-death situations. So yeah, it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant, immersive, and I've travelled a lot, but I've never travelled to the Middle East, and so I almost felt like I was journeying through that country as well as, you know, spending a lot of time with Na. So the whole thing was just exceptional. So yeah, number one. Number two was Saltwater by Jessica Andrews and Milk Tea by Jessica Andrews. They're not a duology, they're not a series, they're not about the same character, but they may as well be. They are. They almost pick up at one after each other. So Saltwater focuses more on early childhood, and Milk Tea is about a young woman, about 21-ish, in Barcelona. I always imagine her as me when I was doing my year abroad at the age of, well, 21, 20 in Barcelona. And so yeah, the descriptions of Barcelona were very evocative and lovely to read. But so yes, both kind of, I'm putting both as number two because I feel like it's very difficult to talk about one without the other, because I don't think the character was ever named, but she could be the same girl. And certainly in Saltwater, I still remember now, having read it almost a year ago, how coastal England, how coastal towns in England were beautifully captured, and I remember how it looked, because obviously I grew up in England, so it was wonderful, and I cried a lot in several. In my review I wrote Saltwater, a coming-of-age story told through poetically gorgeous lyrical prose in a non-linear, poignant little flashes. Because she does bounce around a lot. It's almost like she'll do a chapter in one paragraph, and then she'll move on to something else, and she'll bounce something else, and she'll bounce something else. We go to Ireland. Yeah, thematically it reminds me of Shuggie Bain, but stylistically it's very different. I feel like Shuggie Bain is, even remembering the pages of Shuggie Bain, it is thick, dense, just page after page after page, whereas Saltwater is like, give you a little bit here, and a little bit here, and a little bit here, and a little bit here. It's almost poetic in that sense, so almost stanza-like, even though it's not, it's, a novel. What else did I speak about in my review? Yes, and the tears came from the fact that this resonated so strongly with me from start to end. And so it says, Jessica, you've created a piece of art that speaks to me and holds me and validates me. I don't think I've ever highlighted so many lines of a novel in my life. So if that isn't a ringing endorsement, I don't know what is. Oh, sorry, it's not very professional, is it? Right, so the number 3 on my 2022 best list is Theatre of War by Andrea Jeftanovic. I think I said that right. It's a translated piece of fiction. I love translated fiction. Well, yes. I try and pursue translated fiction. Whether I always get on with it is another question. But this one, oh my gosh, it hit. So it's a coming of age. It reminds me a lot thematically of At Night All Blood Is Black. If you're a fan of that, you'll probably be a fan of this. And even though it's on the blurb, it kind of talks about the PTSD involving what I believe is the Balkan War. It's actually a father-daughter love story. It's about this little girl. It's coming of age, so she just grew up. It's about her watching her slow decline of her dad, really, whilst not understanding really why. We know as the reader, because we are aware from the blurb, that this is to do with war trauma. And so, again, it was beautifully written. You could analyse every sentence in terms of its beauty, and I really appreciate that with writing. I mean, there's themes that come out across my top 10, one of which is just gorgeous writing that I love. I feel like this is turning into some sort of X-rated booktube. Sorry, this is not the way I thought my channel would ever go. Right, here we go. Right, so we have here. So she, what did I put in my review? Should I be editing this bit out? What did I put? This is a story about the Balkans, but in reality the author leaves the details vague enough that it could be about any conflict, any man trapped in the past, suffering from PTSD from a war and a homeland he fled from as a child. It could be any parents with huge personal, emotional and mental issues. It could be about any child coming of age in a broken household and navigating where they fit, who loves them and who they are. So yeah, my final line was thank you Rooster, having read the final line, it was nothing short of spectacular. At its heart, this is a book about a daughter's love for her father. So yeah, and also I have, unless I'm following the wrong YouTube channels, booktube channels, which I don't think is possible at this point. I watch a lot of booktube, unless I am missing. I've never heard somebody talk about that book. So it's published by Charco Press, who are a small indie publisher from the UK, I believe. They publish a lot of Latin American literature, but this one is not. So yeah, I really recommend this one. Number 4 is my first classic on the list, which is, well, I guess it's a modern classic, which is J.D. Salinger's The Catcher in the Rye. I loved this because it took me really by surprise because I'd read The Secret History the year before, and I couldn't stop comparing the protagonist of The Secret History with what's his name? Is it Holden or Colden in Catcher in the Rye? I just imagine them as the same boy. Their attitude, the sort of New Yorkerish accent that is readable. It's in the prose. The dialect is in the prose. Yeah, it's also so Catcher in the Rye. The protagonist is younger than the guy in the Secret History, because The Secret History is more US college, whereas the guy in Catcher in the Rye is more kind of high schoolish, maybe younger than that. So I always imagined him as sort of like the mini version of the guy in Secret History, in terms of the tone and their personalities and their characters. But what really astounded me with The Catcher in the Rye was how much of a character study this book is. There's not a lot of plot, there's just enough, but really it is about this person could walk off the page as a real, fully fleshed person, and that was like, wow. I think in terms of meeting that criteria, no other books passes it this year. I thought that was outstanding. So that is number 4. Number 5 is The Colony by Audrey Magee. Loads of people read this year because it was on the Booker long list, in my opinion, and many others it should have been on the short list. But again, this is one that has beautiful form, beautiful structure, really lovely language. I remember there's this metaphor about halfway through where, is it James? I think it's James, finds this little nook in a rock where puffins had taken up nest, and the guy that he was with, I think it was the artist, wanted to basically to take them up and look at them, I think, and or James did, one of the two, and basically the sentiment was, no, we leave them where they are, and that reflected the theme of the whole novel, which is fighting between, right, what's more important here, whose voice matters, who gets to determine the fate, if you like, of this island, whether they keep English, whether they go back to, whether they keep Irish, whether they whether the language dies out. And I'm not really going to tell you the synopsis for it, even though I realise this probably doesn't make a lot of sense right now if you haven't read it, but I feel like it's been banded around BookTube so often everybody by this point knows the plot of what The Colony is about, and if you don't, there's a blurb. So so what have I said here? Oh yes, I found the quick inserts of what was happening on the mainland with IR terrorism, as well as the snippets of history explaining how and why the Irish language had been suppressed and was consequently now failing and fading out. Wonderfully contextual and much needed to cement the island's happenings within a larger context that would have gone unacknowledged, as not all readers of this novel will be aware of its Irish context, and I totally agree with that. I did a history at degree level, and so we did a lot of Irish history, a lot. So for me, I went into this novel with a lot of understanding and awareness, but if somebody else picked this up, they'd be like, right, okay, so what? Like, great novel, but you want it to smack you in the face and be like, this is what we're talking about, and it does that with those bits of context like smattered in there. So yeah, these are all 5-star reads, by the way, if I didn't tell you. But I read 115 books last year, so if they weren't 5-star, they weren't making the list. So number 6 is my second classic on the list. It's by Daphne du Maurier, and it was my first Daphne du Maurier. And I was inspired to pick up a Daphne du Maurier by one of my favourite booktubers ever, Simon Savage, who I think his favourite book is Rebecca. I didn't go for Rebecca, I went for Frenchman's Creek, and it was no regrets on that front. It was absolutely wonderful. I had such a lovely time. I was smiling as I was reading it. It couldn't not make this list. It reminds me so much, if anyone read the Cat Royale series by Julia Golding when we were little, I think it's a children's book, but I think I read it when I was about 10 or 11. It does have a little bit of some mature themes for like 10-year-olds. So I'd say it's probably more like 10 to 13 it's meant for. And it just reminded me so much of that, just these pirates. And essentially it's a romance story at its heart. And I can see the cliffs and the darkness, and it's set in Cornwall, and there's pirates scrambling up the rocks because they're getting away, and their ship is parked in the harbour around the corner, and there's this ghoulish tale in the Cornish town spreading about pirates coming and raping and pillaging in the night. And so yeah, I don't think they were. No. So yeah, it's very much a cat and mouse novel. It's dark, and I can feel myself there. Yeah, I can hear the crashing waves and the lanterns, and it's just fantastic. It's this old house by the coast that the protagonist, who's a woman, stays in. She's married, but obviously this pirate turns up and things change. So yes, it was wonderful. It was such a treat, and this really was a treat novel. So definitely deserves to make the list. Number 7, we're almost there. Is Street of Thieves by Mathias Enard, who is a French author. Another piece of translated literature. This again, partially set in Barcelona, so I think we start with the protagonist in Morocco, and he works his way up through various jobs up till he gets to Barcelona. He is a refugee, and again, having lived in Barcelona, the Mathias Enard's way of bringing Barcelona to life, and I know the streets he was talking about. I know how they feel, the people, the smell. I know all of it, and so that was wonderful. I loved that. What did I say here? An incredibly sad ending, especially for a well-loved character. It really demonstrates the bleakness of life as an African immigrant in Europe, and however much you want to escape it, you cannot outrun your lot in life. So this book does go to some dark places, definitely. I'm definitely on Storygraph. I think my most popular genre categories are something like dark, mysterious, and something else. But it says, I've put in my review on Goodreads, the writing is great, characterisation is great, the plotting and pacing is great, an original story, a character you care about. There is nothing more I can ask from a novel. So yeah, big hit. So making it onto the list at number 8 is a book that I read relatively late in the year. I read this in November, and it's Benjamin Meyer's book, The Offing. I've never read a Benjamin Meyer's book before, but I heard about this book from G.K. Reed's The Lovely Grace, and so she loved it, I believe, and it's set in the north of England, and I think it either won or was nominated for the Portico Prize. Don't quote me on that, but the Portico Prize celebrates northern writing from the north of England. So I put in my review here, a sheer delight and a joy to read. This is one of those rare novels where you don't think about the writing and the concept, you just enjoy it. Knowing upon completion that every aspect of what you just read had been perfect. Set in the northern English countryside / seaside town, Robert is a young northern lad who sets out for something different than what he can find in his mining village. He camps in Dulcie's garden, and day after day, swapping labour in exchange for food and company, the pair develop a deep friendship, along with Butters, the dog. The two are good for each other, and despite their glaring differences, enhance each other's lives greatly. The descriptions of Dulcie's cooking are mouth-watering, they are, especially for an English woman, me, who has been away from home for almost a year now. So the last time I ate English food was about a year ago. So yeah, to say that the food descriptions were mouth-watering would be an understatement. A wonderful reverie of a novel, with poignant lines of wisdom and a strong sense of place, complete with characters that I will treasure fondly. So that was my review. I read out the full review that time. So yeah, I thought that, yeah, so you got a bit in that review of actually what this book is about as well. It's slow, it's not a lot of action, but it's wonderful. If you're looking for a quiet novel, wonderful. So making it onto the list at number 9 is a book called Paul by Daisy Lafarge. this is interesting. I read this. This is the only audiobook that has made the list. And actually, no, I read The Colony in part as an audio as well, because I tend to struggle with keeping up with audiobooks. I think The Colony worked well on an audiobook because it's so rhythmic, and this worked well on an audiobook because I was just so engrossed in the character. I very much resonated strongly with her. Again, this is more coming of age. She's a very young woman in her first sort of toxic relationship, I think. And so, yeah, it was definitely unputdownable, I think, for that. I put here, here we go, right, this very much is a character-driven story, which I prefer to very plot-heavy narratives. I really relate to the young female protagonist who goes off travelling and has a personality that leaves her susceptible to manipulation and people-pleasing. I found it very atmospheric. I really felt like I was in the French countryside. Having been myself, it captured the feeling perfectly. I spent a lot of holidays as a child in the French countryside, and it's some of the happiest memories of my life. So to have them sort of laid out on the page here was wonderful, and I thought it was fantastic. Just fantastic. So yeah, definitely. So that was number 9 on the list. So the final book to have made this list, it just snuck on to the top 10 of the year, because we're going in descending order. So this is the final one that made that little last cut, was The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. And I didn't originally think that this book would make it this high up, but I read The Secret History last year by Donna Tartt, and that 100% made my top 5. It was fantastic. And I will probably do my top 2021 videos, and probably my top 20, this isn't making sense, so this is my top 2022 books. I'll probably go back and do my top 2021 books and my top 2020 books, just to give you a sense of my reading taste, my potentially the progression of where I'm sort of headed. I thought that might be useful because I don't have a big back catalogue of videos. This is my first one, so I thought that would be useful, as well as going to do my 2023 resolutions video as well. So anyway, back to The Goldfinch. I didn't think this initially would make it because I felt it got slightly stagnant towards the end, but the plot, the character has stayed with me for almost a year, more than any other, and it just felt wrong to leave it off. From the initial opening scene, of this little boy, essentially, now he's lost his mum, he's stolen a painting from the museum. Where are we going from here? From his kind of like foster family to the antique dealer family, to his family in Arizona. I just thought the whole I remember all of it so clearly, that it clearly made an impression on me, and for me to remember a book so clearly, so long-lived, I feel like it deserves its spot. Donna Tartt, I feel, is amazing. She writes thick novels, but I'm going to tackle her next one, which I think is My Little Friend, in 2023. And I think that's the last one, but I really hope it's not, because I really like her writing. I can just eat her books up, and she does plot so well. I mean, if anyone's read The Secret History and The Goldfinch, you know what I'm talking about. That you don't forget those books. They are absolutely sublime. So that caps off my 2022 top reads of the year. So yes, I am very much new to BookTube as a creator. I am not new to BookTube as a viewer. As I say, I've been watching channels for about 3 years now. Maybe I should just list here actually a few of the channels that I love to watch. So I really love to watch Simon Savage, Jen Campbell, Louise Muses, Eric Carl Anderson, G.K. Reads, Hannah.May, I think she's called, or just Hannah May, Jalen from Behind the Bookcase, Gunpowder Fiction and Plot. I'm not sure what his real name is, but his YouTube channel is Gunpowder Fiction and Plot. Who else do I watch? I feel like I've missed out someone that I watch all the time. Oh, I love Mercy's Bookish Musings, Lauren of Lauren the Books. I knew I was forgetting a big one. Yeah, so those are people that I watch all the time and absolutely love their videos. So yes, I hope I can keep this up and hope that I will continue with creating some bookish videos. So yeah, keep an eye out. Say hello down in the comments, and yeah, I can't wait to talk to you very soon. Bye.